Volvo S60 test drive. Zooming upward on a ribbon of road, along a cliff wall, between tight hairpin curves and breathtaking views in the mountains of southern France, I goose the accelerator from about 2000 revolutions per minute and hear a series of sounds that's entirely foreign, especially in a Volvo, the wail and whine of a supercharger, overcome as the revs rise by a throaty four-cylinder note that's then interrupted by the faintest wastegate sounds as I lift off, and click the steering wheel paddle shifter with my left hand before the next hairpin. While the engine, making 302 horsepower and 295 pound-feet, is slated to be the top T6 engine for many of Volvo's models, like the S60, XC60, and soon-to-arrive V60 wagon, the mainstream T5 engine will be a 240 horsepower gasoline 4 that's merely turbocharged, not supercharged, but has a short duration over boost mode providing 280 pounds-to-foot of torque, 258 pounds-to-foot otherwise. Across the board, Volvo is also phasing in a new 8-speed automatic transmission with the new engines, replacing the existing 6-speed and allowing a wider span of ratios. Engine stop-start is included. In our test car it was definitely less noticeable than BMW's system, and these engines are poised to take on the variety of future electrification options, to be used in the XC90, from starter-alternator mild hybrid systems to electric motors at the rear wheels. Based on a couple of hours tackling some very demanding roads, we have no doubt that the new Drive E4 is strong enough for the T6, and to replace the existing Turbo 6. Volvo cites preliminary 0-60 times of 6.0 seconds for the 240 horsepower T5 and 5.6 seconds for the 302 horsepower T6, and these engines should be far more fuel efficient than the outgoing 5s and 6s. Volvo estimates a combined 29 miles per gallon for the lower output engine, while the top T6 should be well into the 30s on the highway. Compared to the previous 6-cylinder T6, the 2015 T6, in Euro spec, loses 95 pounds in total engine and gearbox weight in moving to the new high-output 4, meanwhile the new T5 model will save about 33 pounds compared to the outgoing Turbo 5. Ringing this new engine out in the S60, we noticed a few things. It has a lower redline, just 6,000 revolutions per minute, with a brief overrun allowed to 6,300, so it feels like you run out of revs quickly in the lower gears. And at the lower revs, with the supercharger singing, there's a bounty of torque flowing through the front wheels, and not surprisingly, a bit of torque steer. Steering is confident, has a good sense of center, and loads up nicely off-center, even if it is completely numb given the sport sedan context. On T6 models, when you're stopped, through a My Car menu, you can click into 3 different levels of steering effort. We found the difference between the 3 quite subtle. As much as the S60 gets our pulse going with its sports sedan look and feel, it doesn't from the driver's seat encourage you to go faster in turns, rather, it scrubs off speed in front, in the safest of ways. With the front-wheel drive S60 we drove, in Euro T6 spec, with the equivalent of a USR design suspension, those tendencies were out in full fashion, but we found that giving the steering a flick more angle at initial turn-in for those tightest turns yielded surprisingly positive results. We'll call it a dynamic workaround. Where we expect the S60 to arrive at its zenith, however, is with the new engine in all-wheel drive form, which, sadly, isn't here this year or next year. Volvo was wise not to change all that much about the 2014 S60 aesthetically. Just as we've found all along, the current S60 is not a car that sells itself in feeling particularly edgy or focused from the driver's seat, rather, it's the stark Scandinavian design statement, safety, and relatively simple but tech-advanced interface that sells the S60, along with great ride comfort and a quiet cabin no matter which model. With performance that remains as capable as before, but with improved efficiency, we say bring it on. These new models can arrive soon enough.